got 152 yards. Should be just a nice, comfortable 9-iron for him. They're going to go nuts when he hits this thing.
That's dirt.
Yo, 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 friends of golf content around the world. Welcome into the Preferred Lines podcast and live stream. My name is Joe Idoni. Your grateful host for this evening. At Tour Picks is, of course, the place that you can find me on X if you want to follow the rest of my content. And tonight, we're providing a little intermission here between the TGL doubleheader, but we're also going to recap a little bit of an electric finish to the Mexico Open. We're going to get eyes forward and give some historical and anecdotal notes on PGA National, and then dish out some picks to win the Cognizant Classic. Still training myself to say that correctly. That's what we have going on this evening. Of course, this show, once again, brought to you by the good folks over at Rotoballer. RotoballerPGA.com is the place you can get it. The promo code there is LINES, LINES, all caps, in a nod to this show. We'll get you 10% off any weekly, monthly, annual sub, whatever you want to do over there. We'd be honored to have you join the team. My boy Joe Laporo is here. Golf is finally back in our backyard. You got that? Damn right, Joe. I'm excited for the floor to swing. What better way to start your Thursday morning wake-up call after you drop the kids off to school than to have your lineups already dead? We'll talk about that in a minute here for PGA National, but welcoming back to the program. Excited to talk to this guy tonight. It's been a little while. I put out the tweet earlier that we either ran the greatest event in DFS history or we created a global pandemic. I'm not sure which one. It depends on who you ask. Welcome back to Preferred Lines, RB, Ryan Baroff of Inside Sportsnet. I know you've had a lot of work on camera today, getting ready for today's show. How are you this evening?
Good, Joe. It's good to be back. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been on the show, but, you know, we got plenty to talk about outside of the golf world. So,
speaking of outside of the golf world, favorite memory from what was the 2020 DFS Open?
Oh, man. Yeah, there was a lot. I think so for a number of reasons. I think the playoff that we had at the actual DFS Open, a lot of drama surrounding the playoff.
There was.
I think that was fun.
There was some drama there. I think, my first time meeting Kenny Kim, he was an absolute wagon all weekend. Not only did he have like an incredible Sung JM ticket, which I think a lot of us took part in. You know, Kenny showed up Saturday morning. We weren't sure if he was going to make the tee time. He was still covered in some mysterious glitter on the first tee. And I think he fell asleep at the table during the lunch award ceremony. But I'll never forget Kenny Kim for those moments. And I think anyone who's ever met Kenny live in person would share the sentiment. Dude's kind of a legend to hang out with.
Yeah, I mean, quite a crew we had there. So good to see everyone doing well. And always a fun event. You know, everyone has been here many times. Everyone knows the course. Everyone knows the field without even looking. Like, yeah, it's going to be Berger and Henley and Lowry, et cetera. And let's go from there.
It's our guys. We'll talk about them in just a minute. Let's get this out of the way first, Ryan. Kind of going back to Mexico, kind of hilarious that I think myself and all of us sort of unanimously touted driving distance in bombers and pretty much nailed it, albeit the shortest guy in the field who was basically had to hit driver 3-wood into like 4 or 5 par 4s, was taking lumber off the tee box on par 3s. Ends up slaying Potgeiter on a closing par 5 that he had like 3 opportunities to make birdie at. Couldn't get it done, but what a finish in Vidanta world. What'd you take away from last week?
Yeah. Everyone sort of nailed the week, obviously, with the exception of Brian Campbell. Don't think anybody was on him, except, well, Sky might have had him on some GPP teams, so good for him. But of
course,
yeah, Potgeiter was awesome until he wasn't, which is kind of what we saw from him at Torrey. We saw this from him in South Africa mid-December when he had a 4-shot lead heading to Sunday. Also blew that one. So that was tough. It was a really bad day for me overall. I sort of woke up with a runner-up finish on the DP World Tour. And then Ventura missed a 4-footer on 18 for the top 20. Had 6 places on Alex Smalley that he choked away down the stretch, and then lost in a playoff to a guy who hit it out of bounds. So rough Sunday.
Yeah, kind of rough for me too. I mean, I had on the pre-tournament outrights Jaeger and Smalley as well. Smalley, I don't know why, I just never really felt like that was going to come through. Jaeger, I'm staring at Sunday and I'm like, okay, if he can get to 20 or 21 under, like he's got it. There's no reason he shouldn't have done that, but just didn't have his A stuff. And then I found like a 40-1 live on Hard Rock at one point on Aaron Rye that I took. Great about that at one point until Aaron Rye kind of did what he usually does. But so after Potgeiter was going off, I was thinking of like Potgeiter, Knapp, Rahm, just how this place is so well suited for bombers, and how there are a few stops on the PGA Tour where it just feels like that skill set is so like uncharacteristically rewarded, and it just favors those players so much. I had like a tweet teed up of like, what would Kyle Berkshire's odds be at the Mexico Open? Like 50-1, and I'd probably be lining up to take it. But the guys who can just absolutely send it, can just like mask the short game stuff. And then you got to make some 10 to 15 putts for par like he did all weekend. But it's such a unique skill set that I think that there's, anywhere from 5 to 10 stops on tour where if you're able to hit it 190 miles per hour off the face of a driver, like you're going to have the opportunity to win a few weeks if you can bring somewhat of the rest of your game.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. And I think you saw that so you mentioned the approach distances. Brian Campbell had 240, 250, like into a number of par 4s. And I think that's where you see the biggest difference. Potgeiter's hitting 6 and 7 irons there. And this guy's hitting lumber. So, but yeah, awesome week for him. Always cool to see these guys win for the first time. Brian Campbell's been a pro for, I think, 8 years now, never won anything. So that was good to see.
The moment with his wife sweating it out, like, it was a little bit endearing to me. And those are the magical moments that you get on the PGA Tour week to week when you have these kind of winners. Bouncing around kind of to another topic I had in my notes from earlier in the week. We had Tiger, we had Adam Scott. They flew to the White House to meet with Donald Trump and Yasser, and it felt like there was progress that was going to be made. There were some rumblings, unsubstantiated sources in the media center at TGL who were making bold claims about we were going to have Bryson play in Texas before the Masters this year, and this thing was getting done within a month, and we're going to see Brooks and Bryson. The statement that they put out was basically nothing. Are you any more optimistic now that this gets done quickly than you were, say, 6 months ago?
No, not at all. I don't know. I guess I need to see the how and like what the vision is. Like, I mean, would Brooks want to play PGA Tour events? Like, that's my first question. Yeah. I don't think so. I think he'd want to play all the majors, which he's going to be in anyways for pretty much as long as he wants. But like, I don't think he wants to come back and play. Like, Bryson maybe a little bit. Rahm for sure would probably play a little bit. I think it's better. Like, you may see, I'm sure this has been talked about plenty, but you might see a couple of LIV TGL teams. Like, I think those sort of small baby steps, sort of bringing them back together. I think you're going to see that first, and then you're going to see them start to be in PGA Tour events.
How many guys do you think is realistic that like the tour, because, Rory spoke pretty openly about like no penalty for these guys. And I think he's mostly speaking about like Bryson and Brooks, right? How many, like, how deep does it go? Where do you draw the line on guys that are able to just be reintegrated right away with no repercussions? Is it 5, 10, 15 guys? Like, is Abe Answer going to be able to pick 4 or 5 PGA Tour tournaments and come back? Or are they going to say, back to Q school, buddy? Like, where do you draw the line?
Yeah, I would say back to Q school. Yes. Maybe they're eligible. Look, I mean, you're seeing it with the majors now. They're creating these special categories. So it's possible it starts that way where for, maybe a handful of events, there's 5 live exemptions, right? And they just keep giving them to Rahm and Neiman and Bryson, etc. So like, it's going to be a small integration, but yeah, like, is Brendan Steele going to have status? No. Is Cameron Tringali going to have status? No. Like, I think for those guys, I think they would rather leave things alone than have any sort of deal.
Yeah. TGL team would be a good idea. Maybe a couple of them team up for like the Zurich and we get a couple of teams there. Who knows? Like Brooks, when you mentioned Brooks, I'm like, where would he want to play? Like,
he'd play the week before the Masters. Yeah.
Maybe he'd play the Honda, like if he wanted to, because he always came here, or excuse me, not the Honda, but maybe he'd play one event in Florida and like play the Phoenix or something, or some sort of a tune-up for a major if there wasn't a live event that weekend. But yeah, I can't imagine he plays more than a small handful of events, even if they allowed it to happen. We're in the middle of a little intermission tonight. Electric first match of TGL. New York blows a 4-0 lead by letting Tony Finau waltz into the SoFi Center, throw the hammer down, double point. They win into chip off. Big match tonight, actually. I'm looking forward to this one. Atlanta and Boston coming up. Boston is currently in last place and has the best team from I did a lot of preseason research from a strokes gain perspective last season. If you just look at strokes gain total from a world ranking perspective, all 3 players today are in the top 15. Keegan is one of only 2 players in TGL that hasn't lost a singles match yet. And then you have Hideki and Rory, who are both inside the OWGR top 5. How the hell did Jupiter beat this team? That should be up they need to give them an ESPY for like upset of the year. I don't know how that is even possible. Who you got tonight? You have any lean tonight later? You're just for a little fun bet?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you with Boston Common. I think, they got a lot to prove. That team has been a huge disappointment. And the thing with Jupe Links cost me again the next week, because then I bet Jupe Links as a dog against New York and they got bum rushed. So, New York is a tough team, and a tough team to predict with Xander out, and they showed it tonight.
Yeah. They have very little team continuity. I think
no identity. Yeah, no identity there.
Bay tomorrow. Possible generational wealth position for the Bay. Minus 165 at Bet Online. I think it's 175 at Hard Rock. They lead the TGL in every single statistical category: driving distance, driving accuracy, greens and regulations, scramble, putts made. They're down Ludwig, which certainly hurts, but I still think their other 3 players are certainly good enough to take on, Kevin Kisner and Max Homa and Tom Kim. They'll have such an advantage off the tee. You going to be there tomorrow night with me and my pal Marty Smith?
Not sure yet. I've wanted to go to a match. I just haven't made it up yet, but I don't know if my first time is going to be with Kevin Kisner, though.
I don't blame you. We could be in for another blowout tomorrow, but you never know. It is sim golf, and it's all about putts made, so you never quite know. Cognizant this week, baby. Our event, the Cognizant, unfortunately, Ryan, is like the Honda on Ozempic this year. Yeah. They have stripped away all the fun and the fat that was the Honda Classic. Gone is the grandstands behind 16. 17 has been stripped to the bones. No more double-decker wraparound. There was an article in the Palm Beach Post that I posted a little bit. 18 no longer has the 500-yard air-conditioned Nicholas suite. I think it is going to allow for a little bit more fan access points down the closing points of the tournament, which was always kind of tough to see, because once they got to 15, if you didn't have a special ticket, you couldn't follow them anymore. But God, man, what's happened to our event here?
Money talks, right? You lose the sponsorship. That's you wonder where that money goes. That's where that money goes, right? It goes to the concessions. It goes to those grandstands. I don't remember exactly what year it was we were walking around there. I don't think it was DFS Open year. Maybe the year after, when Grayson Murray ace 17. You could hear that across the course. So, it's certainly going to be a tougher atmosphere. Hopefully the weather stays nice. I got some rain down here. Not sure about you today, but hopefully we get a little bit of a firmer golf course, because I don't want to see a 18 under week like we saw last year.
No, we don't. Let's get into a little bit. I'm going to give some of my course notes here, and by all means, leaning on you to add anything. Champion course at PGA National plays host, redesigned by Jack Nicklaus in 2002, came back in 2014, came back in 2018, but it's the original piece of Tom Fazio work. 7167 is the yardage this week on the course. 7,000 square foot in terms of the green surfaces, which in my opinion, they're pretty big greens when you're actually out there, especially for such a short course. They're pretty big greens. Laser, quick, Tiff Eagle, Bermuda usually run between an 11 and a 12. Like you mentioned, we did get a lot of rain today, but it doesn't look like it's too much in the forecast for the rest of the week. Best known, of course, for the iconic Bear Trap, 15 through 17 was one of the toughest stretches on tour. Although, don't sleep on Alligator Alley, Ryan. 5 through 7, two par threes in there. Both stretches play about the same, about a half stroke over par. They made number 10 a par 5 last year, which I was very against. I think the opening round it played minus 0.87 under par, so nearly a full stroke under par, twice as easy as the next easiest hole. Why are you so obsessed with getting a winner between 17 and 20 under par and chasing that number when it was kind of the identity of the tournament to play very difficult? The Sunday 63 by EVR also was kind of like fun but sick for me to watch someone just dismantle PGA National and the champion course like that, especially on a Sunday. So a lot of changes have undergone. Eckroat won last year at 17 under, Kirk at 14, Straka at minus 10, Matt Jones at minus 12, Sung J M, DFS Open year. How could we forget? Minus 6 winner, played very tough that year. Keith Mitchell, JT, Ricky Fowler, some previous winners. Anything to add notes-wise this year or changes that you've seen with how the course is played over the last 1 to 2 years versus what we had always expected? Because I've been every year for 11 years now.
Yeah. I mean, I think the weather conditions, like you said, really going to dictate it. It was swampy and soft last year, which is why we saw those scores over the weekend. I'm sure they played lift, clean, and place all week for the most part. So, the par doesn't matter, but the conversion of number 10 to a par 5, it's just ridiculous.
Didn't feel
right. There was a highlight. I think they just retweeted a couple weeks ago of like a Fowler near Albatross on 10. I'm like, come on, it's par 4. But no, not too much. We need firm conditions. We need a little bit of wind. I'd settle for like 12 under par winner would be acceptable. But yeah, this was a lot more fun when like 8 under was a great score.
Yeah, and I think they widen. There's other parts like the Bear Trap. They kind of took a lot of the teeth away from that I've noticed. Like every year I go back, it seems like they've widened the fairway there. The rough, like 5, 6, even DFS Open year when we played it, like the rough was gnarly. Like it was tough to get out of.
Yeah, I mean, number 16 is not a hard hole,
right?
Unless you're playing from the rough, right? So you need the rough up. You need to shrink that fairway because if not, you might see some bogeys, but that water's not in play if the rough's
correct.
Yeah.
Yes, and hitting it like out of that thick rough, trying to carry it 175 over all the water, and then 17. This was kind of has happened gradually, but I can remember when I first started going before they had the massive build out. It was playing like 190, 200 yards. And part of building out this massive structure behind it is you naturally have to bump the tee up. Yeah. So it protects players a little bit from the wind. It also kind of hurts them in a sense where when you're in that cauldron, you can't really feel where it's coming from. But going from 195 yard shot to 165 yard shot made that whole play significantly less hard and kind of took the teeth out. And it was good to see that extremely hard stretch right before the closing par 5. And what was so unique about it is when 10 wasn't a par 5, it had been a long time since you had a real genuine, because the other one was at 3. So you had gone 15 holes until your next par 5. It finally felt like you could take a deep breath of fresh air. But then you had a decision on whether to go for it or whether to not go for it from the 18 fairway. So it was always provided us really good dramatic finishes because so many different scores were in play from potential birdie, but double was never out of the question on any of those holes.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I think a lot of it's going to depend on the conditions and specifically wind direction, right? Like 18, for example, which you saw in the Straka Lowry year when he got pounded by the rain. But like if that hole's into the wind, it is like a par 5.5. But if it's downwind, it's like a 4. So it's certainly going to be interesting. Not a lot of drivers out there in general.
Good point.
And so very heavy emphasis on iron play this week.
In short game, like I always felt short game was so important here, because you have a lot of the short grass areas. There's a lot of bunkering. You just look at winners like Chris Kirk and someone like that, and you immediately kind of point to around the green game. But we've seen a lot of different paths taken here. We've seen JT took a lot of drivers. Keith Mitchell took a lot of drivers. So there's been different paths. You just have to really be in control of your golf ball. And another kind of point on 18, I'll speak anecdotally from personal experience. Not an easy layup there. Like
it gets narrow in the neck. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I hit a couple out of bounds in back-to-back years when we played, trying to lay that shot up to like the 100-yard range. But are you going to go this year?
Yeah, I'll go one day. I'm not sure when, but yeah, for sure.
I'm going to go as well. Look forward to it every year. Obviously hopeful for a better field. Was so hopeful for signature event status somewhere along the way, but clearly wasn't meant to be. I think this is probably, scaling back the build out and talking to some people, probably the right move. It probably wasn't a tournament. Like the build out was insane for the quality of tournament that it was. When you look at a place like Valspar that would get a better field, doesn't have nearly the financial commitment in terms of a build out that what they were doing, for the Honda was. And it was one of the most well-attended events for so many years. I think the one year that they actually released the attendance, it was 5th or 6th in PGA Tour events for the year. Don't really expect that anymore. It just doesn't seem to hold the same like buzz in talking to people that I know who play. Like they don't really, the interest level in going doesn't feel the same anymore.
It's tough. It's obviously a good golf course. And they had a great sponsor for many years. It had an identity, right? As a very tough event. It had the best Monday queue. These guys live locally, like all that stuff. But with the new schedule, your sandwich, you got Bay Hill and Players. You're coming from the west. These guys just need a break, and it's just in the middle of the schedule.
Yeah. All right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to bring up my model this week. This is something I knew I've been doing on the show this year. Brought to you by the Rabbit Hole. Promo code over there. If you want to build your own model or get access to mine, Andy Lax, all these different people that put together models each and every week, you can tag along and steal our data, or you can create your own with what I think is the most options and filters and robust data pool that I've ever seen with something like this in terms of a stat building tool. Tour Picks, like I mentioned, is going to be the promo code. That'll get you 25% off any sub over there. Let me pull it up, entire screen. Any sub over there at the Rabbit Hole. Here's my top 10. Tell me where I'm wrong. Ryan Baroff, Russell Henley, number 1. Did not want to see that. Shane Lowry, number 2. Kind of makes sense. Then we got Danny Berger at 3. Straka at 4. Horschel at 5. All this kind of making sense thus far. Kitayama at 6. Harmon at 7. Wasn't anticipating to see him that high. CT Pan at 8. Michael Kim at 9, and then Adam Svensson, my boy. Got a picture with him at the COG a few years ago, rounding out my top 10 in my model. And then, of course, I couldn't let this thing slip without throwing in a little Denny McCarthy there at number 11. Ryan, lost you for a second. Sorry about that. I don't know if it's my connection, but this is essentially the top 11 in my stat model. I know you run one as well. Does it look – what – is different about mine than yours, and what's wrong about it here? Is it Brian Harmon? Because it feels like Brian Harmon.
Name wise, yes. I'm a little less on sort of recent form, just because we've seen so many Florida golf courses, and we've seen this one. Like, for example, Michael Kim just cannot play in the state of Florida, especially can't play here. But he's been playing tremendously well. So I'm definitely more long-term form, Florida form. This looks like it. Everyone has the same sort of model with Henley, Lowry, Berger, Straka at the top. I've seen plenty of Billy Horschel, and you even have a couple names on here who just missed my betting card in Adam Svensson and CT Pan. So yeah, this looks pretty dialed.
Yeah, you mentioned Michael Kim there. Good point there. Not even enough rounds in Florida or at PGA National to qualify. When I look at strokes gained total, this is Florida, the last 36 rounds. You see it's pretty bad there, 54th. What's he number one in right here? Strokes gained total comp course. Okay, so I threw a bunch in here. Probably too many. Bay Hill, Colonial, Harbor Town, Muirfield just because of Jack, Nicholas Tournament Course. Obviously PGA National, TPC Louisiana just because of the water. Then Sawgrass makes sense. Twin Cities, Summerlin, Southwind, Waialae. So he's played well at a lot of those, but like you mentioned, just never really comes over here and plays too much.
Yeah, I looked at him earlier too when I was talking with Andy. He's played here 6 times, 4 missed cuts, and he's never been in the top 50. So clearly something about PGA National that my man Michael Kim does not like.
All right, that's the rabbit hole, gang. Like I mentioned, you have access. I mean, look at all the expert rankings if you want to be a part of it. Andy Molitor, Steve Shermer, Andy Lack, Mr. Ryan Noonan, PGA Tout, Matt Vincenzi. Promo code TOURPICKS, all caps, 25% off. You can build your own. Awesome tool if you're into that kind of stuff. All right, let's look at some odds. Let's go ahead and let's bet this board. The betting board. All right, pulling up the Cognizant Classic odds right now at the top of the board. We start this week at 20-1. Shane Lowry out there at 20-1 is your favorite this week. A couple of guys stacked up right behind him. Henley 22, Straka 25, Im 25, Berger 28, Pendrith 30. I think it's really a big 5, probably leaving out Pendrith there, but we'll go all those guys under 30-1, Ryan. Anything from the top of the board for you this week?
Yeah, most weeks I stay away from the top of the board, but I did not this week. I liked it this week. We've seen these guys with really good course history just continue to dominate this golf course. Even if they don't win, they're just always there. So I wanted exposure to multiple of these players. And I ended up on Russell Henley at 22-1 and Daniel Berger at 30-1. And
good number on Berger.
Yeah, so I'm going to throw Shane Lowry in one and done probably just to get something there. But yeah, Berger and Henley for me. I think when you look at sort of like your DraftKings exposure, like Berger seems like a prime fade candidate this week. But I did get him on the outright card.
Talk to me about Henley.
I mean, it's the Honda. It's Russell Henley. He did his thing at Sony again, like he always does. He just like plays okay, and he's still 10th.
Think he's the best player in the field?
Yes, but can make an argument for Shane Lowry. Yeah, but I mean, Russell Henley, 10th at Sony, 5th at Pebble Beach, just always plays well here. Like, even though he's only won here once, he's just like constantly in the top 20, top 15. I feel like this is a big year for him. He wants to make the Ryder Cup team. So I think that's a big one for him. And if he's going to do it, it's going to be this time of year. So.
Yep, he needs to pick and choose his events. Obviously, with his accuracy, and Shane Lowry as well. The floor is pretty high for those guys because they're such good approach players. They're reliable putters, and you can kind of feel better about them, like not going. Some of the guys that we've seen favorites in this event that just implode because they lose a little bit of that accuracy off the tee. I didn't bet either of them, although they're 1 and 2 in my model, Henley and Lowry. I took Berger. So there are 28-1s out there. I've been kind of waiting for this. It feels like I was like very baited, and it feels like I made this pick like 3 weeks ago, and I just was like at Phoenix, and I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm like, he's gonna be a bad number at Cognizant, but I'm just gonna, in my mind, stash away some money now to play for it to make it feel a little bit better. But top 5 ball striking numbers when you look at courses with tougher scoring conditions, 2 seconds in his last 6 starts, really trending. Looked incredible in terms of total driving at Phoenix on a course with a lot of water. He gained 11 tee to green that week, I believe. Gained in every category across the board at the Genesis, which I thought wasn't as good of a course fit for him, but a solid 12th place finish there. Trending and in a perfect spot in Florida where he is very familiar where he can hit that reliable low cut off the tee and try to do some work on the greens and with his irons. But he's coming back to PGA National where, like you mentioned, back-to-back top fours in his previous 2 starts here. Second place also back a few years before that in his course history. So one of his favorite stops on tour. Still feels very hungry to me, like to get his win and to secure himself in the signature events and to stop relying on the Aon Swing 5 to get into play Bay Hill. And like he's back, I think, and I don't want to wait too long. I think that this is the spot to get him. Can he knock off one in a bigger field? Sure. But you're not going to find a better spot on tour for Dan Berger in a weak field. I think this is one of those opportunities he's had circled for a while to get that victory.
Yeah, I mean, had it circled for a decade, it feels like. And back in form. Really, really impressed with the ball striking in 2025 as he's battling back from all the injuries. And like his 4th place finish here in 2022, just remember, he stood on the 6th tee on Sunday with a 6-shot lead. He absolutely ejected that day. So he wants this one. He's wanted it since the playoff loss. Absolutely love him this week.
It's amazing how your ball striking can improve when you stop playing irons that are 25 years old.
That'll do it. Yeah.
Get a little of that technology in the system and you start to hit them a little bit closer. Moving down the board though, McCarthy 35-1, Min Woo is 35-1, Davis Thompson 40, Keith Mitchell 40, Benny On, Cameron Young, Jordan Spieth, some of the bigger names 6 months ago that you would have imagined in this field are all 40-1. Kitayama was at the top of my model again at 45-1. Ben Griffin off another solid showing at 50. Gracerman, Spahn, Kim, Rogers, Smalley, Novak, Eckroat, Horschel, Clanton, all a lot of players with a lot of
good players.
In this 55-1 to 30-1 range. What do you like in the middle of the board, Ryan?
So a lot of broken golfers here.
Yes.
And I talked about this afternoon with Andy, but like, it's not a get right spot, right? Like, I don't think Cam Young is going to find it with his irons here. I don't think
that's my guy. And I know.
I don't think Benny On is going to find it with his irons here.
You're right.
Yeah. The only guy that I bet in this range, and really the only guy that I have any interest in this range, is Andrew Novak.
Okay. Why?
I took a 60 on him this morning. So Novak, 29th and 9th here, his last 2 years. Last year was one of the best tee to green in the field. He actually gained in all 4 strokes gained categories here. Just been playing really well, right? Had a 3rd at Torrey, backed it up with a 13th at Torrey. In between there, had a 13th at Pebble Beach. And we've seen him contend now a couple of times. I think it was the Amex last year. He contended at the Deere, contended at Bermuda. I just feel like he's the type of golfer who's like on that top 50 bubble who actually has some winning upside. So I like the talent overall. And, anywhere from 50 to 60, I think is very fair for Andrew Novak.
Yeah, I think so. Look, I talked to you about it earlier, and I think your points are very valid. You don't want to show up here with shaky iron form and try to find something on the range at PGA National. Yeah. That said, I bet Cam Young 45-1. There's some signs that I'll point to here and try to make a few decent points. Rated number 1 in my model in off the tee and less than driver courses. He has a terrible, brutally bad putter overall, but in the last 6 months on Bermuda, he's been pretty good on Bermuda. He's actually gained over a stroke per round on Bermuda over the last 6 months putting. Now, I know there's not a lot of rounds that factor in there, but there's no way around his iron play being bad. T12 at Phoenix gave me a little sliver of hope. So T16 and T4 in 2 starts here at this event. So he's performed pretty well here. I see upside. You mentioned talent with a guy like Andrew Novak, and it's hard for me to think of his talent level and the talent level, raw talent I see Cameron Young have. We know the hurdles. We know the mental struggles that he's going through. We've seen it with so many players. But it wouldn't shock me to see him knock off a win and then take 2 more down, like a 3-win season for Cam Young at some point when he finally breaks through. I don't know. I'm going to take a chance here in a weak field and feel like this is maybe an opportunity for him.
And look, I mean, I bet Cam Young at least twice this year already. So I am not one to talk. But yeah, the irons are just bad. And like, I know Data Golf's not like the be all end all. They have Novak 23 spots higher than Cameron Young.
Wow.
Yeah, he's 58th. Cam Young is currently 81st, just because the ball striking has been so bad. So yeah, look, I mean, if Cam Young wins, like you said, multiple times this year, I would not be shocked at all. I just, I don't see it happening in the Florida swing. I'll say that.
Yeah, I get it. You're right. He's a little bit, he can't even hit the spear. Cam Young can't hit the fairway on the spear or the serpent. So how's he going to do on the champion course?
That's right.
We'll see. Luke Clanton's an interesting one to me. I did not back him. Smalley, this is a good number on Smalley in a similar field. I can't go back there after what I witnessed on Sunday. I'm not going to even make any points here, but McCarthy will be on my card at 40-1.
Sure.
I don't know. It's the number.
I think if you blind bet him the next 4 weeks, you might get one. So
he might get one. Look, he's close, man. And I'm not going to shit on him because look, he ran into like an electric Batia in Texas. He had to battle peak Hovland at the Memorial. Like this is peak win Victor. Like this is when Victor was like the number 2 like trending player in the world and got his signature win. Then he had to take on like a red hot Ludwig. I know in being in communication with them that he's spent a lot of time picking up speed, which I think was the right move in the offseason. And he loves PGA National. He told me this. This is where he qualified through Q School. He made an epic run. He has incredible like vibes and history here. And he told me he will always come back to this event because it's one of his favorite courses on tour. And you look at his baseline numbers and they go up significantly on the more difficult tests that he plays. So that's my McCarthy spiel.
My only concern with Denny, right, is like from a very simple perspective, what you look for at PGA National is flushers. And what is McCarthy? Not that. So like, and I know he's had one good finish here, but mostly missed cuts. But again, he's playing great. He played great at Torrey where we didn't expect it, played well in Phoenix. So I do think a win is coming this year for Denny McCarthy.
It'd be huge. We love to hear it. Moving down to the next range, I'll give you one that I got at 60-1. I took Lucas Glover. Pretty reliable off the tee, although you mentioned some of that is not as important as maybe it once was, but I still have him third in good drives gained over the last 36 rounds. Top 10 in terms of distance from the edge of the fairway, which is one of the stats that I love that the rabbit hole has, especially at a course like this where we know in many spots the rough is maybe 4 or 5 yards, and then you're in the water and you're taking a drop and you're in a hazard. So shortening the miss, you're going to miss fairways. You can't miss by a lot here, particularly to the right-hand side because that's where all the water is. So pretty precise player with the wedges, second in scrambling also that I looked at over the last 36 rounds. Played this event a lot. I wouldn't say any like massive points of success, but he's got his fair share of top 20s here. His best was a T4 in 2019. Kind of lingers around that top 20, top 30 range, but I like his around the green game. And I think of like the mold of like someone like Chris Kirk, I think is how he probably ends up winning here. I think he's a drawer of the ball too. And we've seen a lot of guys who draw it because of that water always on the right-hand side, particularly the entire back nine. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. You miss any of those holes to the right, you're in the water. So we've seen drawers here. We've seen Eckroat do it. We've seen, like I mentioned, Kirk do it and those type of players. I'm trying to remember. I know there was a few others who said, you're a drawer, so you did well out here. But yeah, one of the other notes I had there on Glover at 60-1. Anyone, Ryan, I'll kind of open it up. Let's say 60 to anyone you got in the long shot range to talk about before we wrap up.
Yeah, so a couple guys I look closely at Glover. Ultimately, I said I don't see the winning upside, and then he usually leads into his wins, right, with some really good form and like really good iron play. He's lost on approach his last 2 events, so that was a little bit concerning, just because like what Lucas Glover needs to do to win. He's never going to win a putting contest, right? He's never going to win a driving distance contest. So I think that gave me hesitancy. I obviously looked at Gary Woodland, but sort of same thing. Like if Gary Woodland finishes 12th, I wouldn't be shocked at all. I just don't see the winning upside with him quite yet. The only guy that I bet in this range is, as everybody did, was Lee Hodges. I took an 80 last night. I think there were still 80s this morning. But
75s now. Yep.
Yeah, so his last two starts, T57, T33, kind of got people off the scent and maybe got us a slightly better number. I mean, this guy was on fire through the fall and really through the first round at Torrey. So he finished 5th at the RSM, then he finished 10th at Sony, made the cut at Amex, 9th at Farmers. Was really he was a staple of all our DK teams. So also has a 14th and a 9th at this event. So just felt like a really good number for someone who's won on one of those comp courses that you mentioned. And he won by 5, right? It was a big margin of victory at
Twin Cities, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So he's shown winning upside. He's contended in pretty big events. I'd rather take an 80 to 1 on him than like a 60 on Gary Woodland. Yeah.
So a couple of the long shots I look for, and I'll have the full card out on Wednesday, posted to my Twitter page. But and I had someone mention to me this morning, Eric Cole, 90 to 1. Thought about it because this was the spot we saw Cole kind of break through, but is if you look at a rolling report on Eric Cole, it's going very much in the wrong direction. He can't find a fairway right now, and his putting, which was one of the strengths of his game, has been awful the last 12 rounds played.
Yep.
So certainly I feel like a spot. I like Eric Cole in Florida much better than I do on the West Coast, but it didn't feel right. So instead, I went to my other guy in Adam Svensson, 110 to 1.
Yeah,
available now. Was top 10 in my model that I showed earlier. 7th in off the tee on less than driver courses. So I still think he's, like you mentioned, Denny is not a flusher. I kind of can think Svensson is a flusher, particularly inside, let's say 170 yards, like a great wedge player. Top 10 in sand saves in the model too, which kind of surprised me. Just a streaky player who you're hoping gets hot and, gets a ton of wedges in his hands here. The T9 in 2022, where I know I had a big ticket. I think you did too. And we kind of felt like he could win there when he was making the turn and folded a little bit on that back 9, which a lot of players do. But now as a young player with a lot of reps under his belt, he's got a PGA Tour win. He's competed in big fields. He's been around and lingered around the top 20 in some majors. Who knows? Good spot maybe for Svensson, who we know very well practices and makes his home down here in Palm Beach County. So 110 to 1 I thought was a decent price and something you don't have to have a very big stake in to potentially give yourself a decent sweat.
I was very close on Svensson. My only concern, again, is that as bad as his putting has been historically when we bet on him, it seems to have gotten worse. The last year has just been abysmal for Svensson in terms of putting. And he could lead any field in strokes gained approach, including this one. I just don't think he's going to make enough putts. In that same mold, you think of a guy like Svensson, you think of a guy like Eric Cole. I think there's a better version of them in better form at 100 to 1.
Yeah.
Ryan Gerard. Yeah. I think he's nearly the same golfer as Eric Cole, but he doesn't miss every fairway. He's putting really well right now, went to UNC, played some minor league golf down here. And so he really has a lot of parallels with Eric Cole, with the exception of he went on the Korn Ferry Tour last year and just absolutely dominated all summer. He had a win in June, bunch of other top 10s. I think he was top 5 in points coming off the Korn Ferry Tour, but tied 17th in Mexico last week. He tied for 15th at Torrey, and in 2023 was 4th here coming off a Monday Q. So he can go low. He can go low here. I was shocked to see 100 to 1 on Hard Rock this morning. I think he's down to 80 in most places, but I truly think Ryan Gerard has winning upside here.
Speaking of the Monday Qs, we always have a couple of guys who play really well in this event. Did they finish that today with the weather, or is it going to go down tomorrow?
Going tomorrow. A couple of our Buckeyes are in it. Lurking. Max Moldovan. Max Moldovan shot 5 under, so he might go to a playoff. But Bo Hoag is 5 under through 9, so he'll probably be the medalist depending on how they finish up.
Anyone else? You see Celinda had a good week last week. You've got Mackenzie Hughes, who has a runner-up here. You got Nat back in the field. Eric Van Rooyen, who I mentioned, shot a 63 on the champion course last year. You've got
this was
Spenton.
it was all guys, right? Like I mentioned, who I liked but don't have winning upset. Like I looked at Grayson Sigg. I think it's a good golf course for him. I looked at Ryder, as I always do here. I looked at Svensson. I looked at Joel Damon. I assume people will bet him. He's not going to win, right? So I went deeper. I took some shots because, again, I started at the top of the board, so had to round it out with the bottom. I took 3 long shots, 200 to 1 or longer this week. Obviously, a good golf course for that. So Rio Hisatsune, Matteo Manacero, Danny Willett. All guys who I think when it gets tough and dirty have winning upside and can grind their asses off here. Rio, I think he actually can. He won at Le Golf National in 2023, which again is kind of the European version of this golf course.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a dog. He finished 10th in Mexico last week. Ball striking was great. He finished 3rd at the Wyndham in the fall, which again, it's not an exact comp course, but I think you see a lot of the same names here as you see at Sedgefield. And I got a 220 on him this morning. Just felt like a big number, but yeah, Danny Willett, it might be
What's
nothing.
That 500 to 1 you have on Willett?
Yeah, it might be nothing, but he was coming off an injury, right? I think it was a wrist injury. Missed a ton of the last year and a half. He made the cut in Mexico in November, and then he went to South Africa, finished 21st. Then he came to Torrey Pines and finished 9th on a golf course where he has no business finishing 9th. So he's made his last 2 cuts here. We've obviously seen him win very big events and be a world-class player. Would you be shocked if Danny Willett's in the final group on Sunday at Honda? No, not at all, right?
He's got the stones to do.
Yeah, 500 to 1 was just that's a number you would see on a club pro or a college kid or something like that. Not on Danny Willett. So I'm in there.
What about, I was going to ask you, any thoughts in going back to Rosner at 150 to 1? Were you on him last week?
I was. He's not the longest hitter, but he likes to hit drivers is kind of how I would describe him. But at his best, he is a flusher. He can lead this field in ball striking, no problem. I do not trust his putting in the least. These greens, as you know, are brutal to chip. They're brutal to putt. I don't know. Has he played here before? I wouldn't think so, right? Yeah. I just have a feeling he's going to get blown out to sea here.
Talk to me about Manasaro.
So I was shocked. I looked back a decade ago when he was good. He finished 29th and 12th here in his 2 appearances. Probably some shady data, but ball striking was pretty good, especially the iron play. But the issue with him is he is an Eric Cole level driver, just awful. Can't hit fairways very often. He does not hit it far. But Eric Cole did okay here, so maybe Matteo can as well. But he's adjusted better, probably much better than I expected. I thought he would struggle coming off the DP World Tour, but he's made all 3 cuts so far: Amex, Farmers, and Mexico. Obviously has the talent. And I think, again, if you get a weird week, maybe half the field gets blown out with wind or rain or something like that, and the winner is 9 under, he can hang in something like that. So, and again, he's 300 to 1. So you don't need much to go there.
Ryan, great speaking with you as always. Hope to see you there this week. Hope to see you at TGL soon as well. I know you had the a DFS preview out already. It's on the ISN Twitter feed. You did a live stream with Andy Lack earlier today, and then did a DP World Shore Tour show with do with Tom or Sky, or who'd you do it with?
Yep, I fill in for Sky. Tom is always available. He's like the Iron Man. So yeah, with Tom today. Very fun event over there as well, down in South Africa. And the pod with Andy is going great. ISN is doing well. If you guys aren't members yet, you should hop in, join the Discord. Just a bunch of dudes talking golf. So
Absolutely. Good dudes as well, just like
Good
you, man.
dudes.
All right, let's get out of here in time to catch the electric Atlanta versus Boston big time matchup. We're on the Ball Frogs.
Yes, sir.
Hope to see you soon, man. Thanks again for taking the time this week. Peace out, Ryan.
Let's do it.
Later, buddy. All right, gang. Joanne, good to see you. See ya, my man. Sia Najad, good to see you too, brother. Me and Sia did. Actually, I believe the Spaces is still available. So we did a Twitter Spaces last week with Sia. I thought it was awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Kind of talking to some people over there. Is it Francois? Francois. Good luck this week to everyone. Yeah. Great point. Good luck to everyone this week. Let's hit a winner for the Cognizant. I'm going to be at TGL tomorrow for the Bay versus Jupiter. If you have any questions, you want me to fire away at the boys in the media center, I'm always open. I appreciate everyone for taking the time out of their week to check out this show. As always, means the world to me. It's been a super busy weekend. My son's first lacrosse. My son scored his first goal this weekend in lacrosse, which was a huge moment for me as a former player. You see a little stick up there, coaching his team. Dad's in town. My aunt came into town today. We've got a lot of family down here visiting. So it's been a rapidly fast moving couple of days, but I appreciate you all as always for your support. Make sure to like this video. Make sure to give this a heart over here on Twitter. If you see it, there's my wife, first goal. Thanks for checking out the show. As always, Miss Jessica Marie. Good to see you, baby. Thanks. Make sure to give this subscribe to the YouTube channel. As always, we'll catch you guys next week for Bay Hill. Florida Swing is upon us. I'm ready. Thanks for watching Preferred Lines.